Hello, and welcome back to the Los Angeles Friends podcast. I'm your host, Emmely, and today I'm having a very important conversation with Rae Huang, a single mother, a reverend, a community organizer, and a candidate for mayor of LA. We're talking about her vision for a city run by Angelenos for Angelenos, and what it means to tackle the housing crisis, address homelessness with long-term solutions, rethink public safety and police accountability, and what real change in LA could actually look like. Hi, Rae. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, this is such an honor. I appreciate it.
No, it's an honor for me and the team. We were so excited to have you on, and I know you're busy, so it means a lot that you took time out of your busy schedule and your campaign to come and sit down with us and yap a little bit.
Oh yeah. Actually, this is my favorite part of being on the campaign trail is actually getting to know people, telling stories.
Yeah. I think it's good because then that's how you connect more with us and with the community, and people get to know you more, and that's why we're here. And I hope people get to know a little bit more about you with our episode.
Thank you.
So how have you been? How are you outside of the campaign? Because you're busy.
Yeah.
You doing okay?
I am. Actually, I would say when people ask me how I'm doing and in general what it's like, I would say 80% of the time it's pretty amazing. It's inspiring. It's definitely growth inducing.
Yeah.
And I am just so inspired by all the people I'm meeting who are ready for change and who are participating in creating that change already in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So that's my experience. The other 20% is the growth part.
Yeah.
I am still a normal human being who, every so often that triggers some childhood wound and you're like, ooh. What was that? I got to deal with some of that stuff,
Yeah.
And that's just normal, so.
How do you practice self-care during a time like this in your life?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. The two important parts of my life are my self-care aspect of eating healthy, which I mostly do, not always, of going and exercising every single day.
Yeah.
About every single morning, I'll go to my gym where I hang out with my favorite gym classmates.
Oh, cool.
Or go for a run by myself or with the dog.
Yeah.
And also sleep. And so I make sure I hit all of those. But the other side of it is I spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
So they are absolutely the most important grounding part for me because they remind me who I am, my priorities, and they settle myself and my body in the way that family does for you.
Absolutely. So you have two daughters?
I do.
It? Yeah. What are their ages? They're littles.
They are, they're tweens now.
Oh my God.
They're
still little.
Yeah, they're still little. They're 11 and 13.
Oh, they're just babies in my eyes. I'm sure to you, they're always going to be little babies. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, they are just lovely. I am so proud of who they've become. Being kids who grew up during the pandemic, especially my little one who started kindergarten in the pandemic online.
Poor kid.
Yeah, exactly. It was such a struggle for us adults, and to see children and youth be able to get through that season and find themselves and find stability, it's really amazing. And so I feel so lucky to have two amazing daughters who really care about this world, really care about their friends, and are really driven in their own inspired commitments and interests.
I want to talk about your connection to LA because you're not originally from Los Angeles. So can you tell us where you grew up and where you're from?
Yeah. So I grew up in New Jersey and Massachusetts.
Oh, cool.
And then I lived around the world as a young adult. I moved from Boston, Massachusetts, where I did my undergrad and grad school, went to I went to Greece, Athens, Greece.
To live?
Yeah, to live.
I might need some recommendations for Greece after our episode's over. So
I will definitely let you know. They have such good food. The people are amazing. It's a fun, beautiful country.
I might be going this summer. So we'll see.
Great.
Yeah.
So after Greece, I then moved to the San Francisco Bay Area and then to Australia, to North Carolina, and then finally LA. Now that I've been here in LA for well over a decade, it feels now a lot like I felt like in North Carolina, which even though LA is so big, it's a small village in a lot of ways because of the way that we really care about each other, because of the way that we stand up for each other.
Totally.
Even though, for example, we might not have any blood relation, when the ICE raids came to town, we all stood up and showed up at the schools. We showed up at Home Depot. We blew our whistles. We learned know your rights. We led Know Your Rights.
Yeah.
We organized rapid response.
Yep.
That's just what we do in LA. And so even if you don't know your neighbor, when you roll up to something like that, you're like, I know you've got my back.
Absolutely.
And I know I've got yours.
Yeah. I felt that too. Because I had left for 6 years for college, and then I moved back. And when I got back to LA, I felt like I was still finding my community again. And yes, I had my family, but like a lot of my friends were outside of LA. They weren't here. So, I had just told you that's how I started LA Friends, but it made me think what you just said is during the fires that we had, the sense of community, because that was right before the ICE raids. So the sense of community that I felt was so overwhelming in a positive way, of course, but it was so amazing to see people show up and show out, for the families in the Palisades, the families in Altadena. I worked a lot with my friends to, pull together money and make donations for those families in Altadena and get things done and try to be a good neighbor, because they didn't affect me directly here in the valley where I am, but it affected a lot of Angelenos. And I have a lot of love for the people that I don't know, but simply because they're from Los Angeles and it's my home. So I totally know how you feel. And it's nice to hear that you feel the same way as me. Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think what's so powerful about this moment we have, which I often say is really special for us, is because we went through the pandemic together. Yeah. And the pandemic was very isolating. In one level, you got to really get close to your closest neighbors. Right. The people who live next door that you never really kind of knocked on the door of before. And all of a sudden you're like, you're the only person I see every day when I go get my mail or go to the grocery store. But now that we're where we are, from being so isolated and then now in a moment where we've been experiencing extreme trauma together as a community because of the fires, because of the ICE raids, because of what we've been seeing and experiencing from the Trump administration, there's something calling us together to have to show up and roll up. Yeah. And I think that opportunity gives us a moment to say, hey, I actually want connection. Absolutely. And I want connection with the people who are in my village. And I want to see them as part of my community. And so we're building that and we're building it tighter. And I think we're realizing what our values are in the city. And I think that's what gave me the courage and the inspiration to run and say, we as a city are ready for something real, something lasting, and we're ready for real leadership, real moral courage in this moment when a lot of people are not stepping in and stepping up. Yeah, I'm really glad that we're talking about this specifically, because I feel like, as Angelenos, we get a bad rap from people come and they leave LA. They move to LA for like a year. They leave and they say LA was terrible, or that the people that they met sucked, and that there's no community here. But that's not true. You've seen it. I've seen it. I think a lot of people have seen it. And again, that's what we're just trying to show, that Los Angeles is a truly special place. Yeah, it really is. So thank you for loving the city and becoming an Angeleno. Yeah, absolutely. So what actually brought you to LA? Why did you move here? Yeah, so I was married at the time and I was pregnant with my first daughter and I had my first daughter. She was already with me. She was 1 year old. And I was pregnant with my second. Okay. And so I arrived where my now ex-husband had found a job teaching at USC. Oh, okay. And his family lives in Orange County. And so it was an opportunity for us to raise our children near family, not my side of the family, near his. And so that's what brought us here to begin with. Wow. And then, you just start living, you start raising your kids, you start building connections with family, with neighbors to try and build your community. And I think because I've been a community organizer for now over 20 years, but at the time, about a decade, I immediately knew that I wanted to participate in my neighborhood. And one of those areas was around the public school system. Oh, okay, yeah. The local public school near my house was underperforming. And I wanted to make sure that we as a collective could organize our neighbors to actually attend. So we weren't participating on white flight. We weren't pulling resources from the school. But actually we could really build up the community together and make sure that our kids were raised by a whole village. And so that's how I started organizing. And that's what got me connected with my neighborhood. I wanted to get into your work as a reverend.
I think that is something that's absolutely interesting. So if you could share maybe like a brief little history of how that got started. And
I started to get really activated in the church because I loved asking the question of how do you care for this world better? I was very philosophical and theological as a kid, still am. And so that was my upbringing. And so when I went to college, I ended up studying theology because I was so drawn to the study. And that was actually what ended up moving me in a different direction because my church was a very conservative community. While it was a wonderful supportive space for myself, it was not one for women or for LGBTQ. So even though I felt called to serve the church in some capacity, I could not serve as an ordained pastor, but I felt very called to do that. And so ultimately I ended up finding a different denomination where they do ordain women and LGBTQ into ordination and also marriage.
So, sorry, quick question. They wouldn't let you become a pastor because you're a woman. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. It was interesting. If you wanted to serve the church as a woman, you would become a pastor's wife. And so I have to say, it's very awkward when you have to go, when you're out dating and looking for a partner and you're like, hi, are
you a pastor?
Yeah. Are you a pastor? Do you want to be a pastor? Do you want to go on a date?
What the heck? Wow.
Yeah. That was the reality. That was just the practice.
That's just how it was. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I was an undergrad at Boston College, a Jesuit university, I studied a class called Liberation Theology, which is the idea that God is a God of and for the poor, that God walks in solidarity with the poor. And that really opened my eyes to reimagining and reinterpreting the Bible through a different kind of lens, where the word poor or poverty is actually the most mentioned word in any other word in the Bible. And so it made sense it was a radical idea, in fact, at the time for me. And so that was what got me wondering about what does it mean then to serve God? It means to actually wrestle with why there's poverty in the world and to fight it. There's a saying in sort of the faith-based organizing world that we fight poverty, not the poor. And that is kind of how we now progress in our organizing and policy, how I also practice it in the way that I think about policy and platform for the city, and how I organize.
Yeah. So how has your work as a reverend shaped how you are moving through the world in Los Angeles today and wanting to be the mayor of Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's shaped me in two ways. The first is it's been a very grounding space for me spiritually to just know that I can rely on, sort of a greater spiritual foundation for myself, and not be too rocked by the craziness of this world, by the things you see in the news, by the political ugliness, if you will, of our country. And then the other side of it sets the values for me about what I think about what our society and what our city should look like. That we value and respect every single person with dignity and with respect, that we make housing a human right. Like myself, so many people experienced a lot of trauma growing up in churches that were so oppressive and suppressive. And so it took me years in therapy to be able to be where I am now in really seeing and transforming what the church can be. I often will say the church needs to die in order for it to resurrect.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
I think that's actually similar to what I think about a lot of our policy and policy and the way that our society functions is what are the things that need to die for us to be able to rebirth something new, something that it can actually help and support people.
To truly change.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you say to someone who I guess is apprehensive of bringing a person into office that is religious and ensure that there is a separation between church and state?
I would say I totally 100% understand because the religious space, particularly Christianity, at least in the U.S., has really become a place of oppression and suppression, a place where people don't feel safe. People have wielded and used religion as a sword, as a violent weapon of division, sowing discord and sowing, who's right and who's wrong. And whereas I have seen faith in my own practice, I've always done interreligious work, dialogue, interfaith, mediation, actually my whole adult career, even while I was in university.
Okay.
And I understand the challenges because religion is oftentimes used as a place to weaponize our beliefs, right or wrong. Whereas the opportunity, I think, I guess how I would answer the question, what would I say to somebody? I would say, I understand the trauma that you experienced because I myself have experienced trauma from the church.
Yeah.
I myself had to go through years of therapy and reanalyze places and spaces where religion or especially religious institutions can actually be helpful. For me, the way that I think about the healthy relationship between faith and politics is it does need to stay separate.
Yeah.
I believe very strongly in the separation of church and state. On one side, because I don't want the church or any particular religion influencing the political world because we're such a diverse religious community. Yeah. That's one of the most beautiful parts of Los Angeles. A lot of people don't realize LA is the most religiously diverse city in the world.
Really?
It is. Per, sort of square meter or whatnot, we have the most religious diversity than anywhere else.
Okay.
Because so many people from all different parts of the world come here to live their lives, and they bring their beliefs, they bring their faith, they bring their traditions with them.
Yeah.
And that is something 100% to celebrate.
Yeah.
The other side of it is I also don't want politics to influence any of our religious spaces. It pulls away from the beauty of those spaces, from the tradition and values of those spaces. And I want those to continue to be holy and sacred. And so for me, both things staying in their own areas are important. At the same time, we can still speak truth to power.
Yeah.
At the same time, we can still show up as people of faith to City Hall and speak our mind and say, as a Muslim, I believe this. As a Jew, I believe this. As a Christian, as a Sikh, as a Mormon, I believe these things, right? To allow space for people to still own and be proud of and live into their tradition while also being able to participate in our political world.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us such a thorough answer. Because it answered something that I think about as a person who's not in the church or in any form of religion, really. And thank you.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get into like the meat and potatoes of our interview now, which is we talk about your campaign, if that's cool with you.
Of course.
So what are the top 3 issues that you hope to tackle while in office? And you can name these briefly here, and we'll go into more details later on in the episode.
Yeah. I want to first frame it by saying that what shapes all of the pieces of our platform is around the idea that I don't want more system reform.
Okay.
Reforming a system that's not working for us doesn't work. I've said this multiple times this week, in fact, which is the idea that the system is not broken. It's that the system is working exactly as it's designed to work. And what we need is a real systems change. And so the platform and the priorities of my campaign is really around the idea that we need real safety.
Yeah.
We need affordability, and that affordability is safety. Affordability is actually a healthy city. So those areas are around the idea that we need to ensure that housing is a human right, that homes are for people and not for profit. And what does that look like? It means that we are ensuring that our unhoused have places to live, not just short-term Band-Aid solutions like hotels and motels that they are promised that they're going to get out of after a few months, where they end up staying over a year and then end up back on the streets because it's not worked out for them. Instead, we need permanent, affordable housing. One of the ways to get there is a system of housing called social housing. That's permanent, affordable housing that's community or publicly owned, and also resident managed. What that means is that if you as a resident needed to replace the leaky pipes, you could do it because you're the one managing it. It means if you want to have a bike rack at the bottom of your building, you could decide that with your neighbors and say, let's have a bike rack so that way I can start biking to work or start biking to school. And so social housing is a way for us to ensure that we have affordable housing, not for the short term, but for the long term. And the reason I say this is a lot of people, since we want to educate your listeners here, the way that we get affordable housing right now, the system in place is through low-income housing tax credits.
Yeah.
We give a credit to the developer who's building that housing. And we say, we'll give you a tax credit if you ensure that you're going to build a certain number or percentage of housing to be affordable. Okay. So maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 20%, maybe it's 80% of that housing, maybe it's all of it. But after 55 years, then that housing is no longer affordable. It returns back to market rate at that moment.
Oh, okay.
And so one of the problems is that a lot of our buildings were built 55 years ago, and that covenant is now over. And so now we're losing affordable housing.
Gotcha.
And then we have to build it again. It's a leaky bucket. And so we need to end that. We need to close up that hole in that bucket, and we need to ensure that we have permanent affordability for the long term. Yeah. To ensure that those properties stay in the hands of community and in the public, so we can have housing for everybody for the future. So that way, as you live in your building, you could pass it down to your children. You could pass it down to your great nieces. You could pass it to whoever you want. Once you live in that building, it's yours. Yeah. And in fact, even as a tenant, you don't have to leave that building. No landlord's going to kick you out because it's not a landlord who's trying to make money off of you. It is a steward of that land. It is a community land trust. It is the city of LA. It is the state of LA holding on to that land. They're not going to try and kick you out. They want you to stay there and they want to support and ensure they're going to stay there. So all of a sudden, tenancy no longer feels like a transitory space. It doesn't feel like an unstable, fearful wonder of whether or not your rates are going to go up in a year. It means that you now can stay there as long as you want. And if we have enough of land in Los Angeles that is community or publicly owned, enough land that's stabilized, real estate that's stabilized, it means now that you've stabilized the whole real estate market. And then you have more options so that when you want to move, there's more options of affordable housing that you could choose from.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's just one, but we'll go into the others in a moment. But
yeah, actually, what do you plan on doing your first week as mayor of Los Angeles?
Yeah, I plan on firing Chief McDonnell and moving towards a space where the majority of our community can start to feel safe again. Okay. Because I feel like, especially in this season where we are seeing ICE raids happening and people are too afraid to go out shopping, too afraid to go to school, too afraid to go to work. I'll tell you, I had a small business roundtable together, and I thought the small business owners would be talking about the expense of fees, the fact that they're not getting responses from the city in time when they're trying to figure out their permitting process. And those were things that they lifted up. But they said the thing that impacted them the most over the last 2 years was actually the ICE raids. Yeah. They were having workers who didn't want to show up to work anymore because they were too afraid. They also had clients who were no longer shopping and out and about as much because they were too afraid. When people are afraid, they don't want to go shopping.
Right, exactly.
And so we need to ensure that we are breaking that relationship between LAPD and ICE. And we also need to ensure that when we are speaking up with our freedom of speech, which is one of our constitutional rights, including our youth who have stood up and who have marched to speak out against the ICE raids, that we don't see police assaulting or being fearful of the police coming out and assaulting us for using our freedom of speech.
Yeah. Like it was still a scary time. And I think like even a lot of my friends who the same situation, they were born here, but their parents are immigrants. They were scared to be racially profiled, even though they have like their real ID card and they could show that, but ICE didn't really care. Like they were still targeting people just because they were people of color. Exactly. It didn't matter what their status was, right? So yeah.
There's so much discrimination. We've already been experiencing racial profiling already from our LAPD for
a long time.
The whole history, right, of having the police in Los Angeles, right? So we already have that experience. And so now to escalate that with ICE And as well as the fact that a lot of our trans community also feel threatened and under attack right now by the federal government. We just don't know what's going to happen. And so I think it's so important that we are standing up in this moment and being able to acknowledge the pain and the trauma that we're all experiencing. And also the fact that even if you aren't, Black and brown, even if you are somebody, who has citizenship right here in this country. Like you said, we've seen incidents where protesters who are trying to protect other families are the ones getting shot, like Alex Preddy. Right? Like, I think it was in that moment when Alex Preddy was shot, and as well as Renee Good, it was in those moments that all of a sudden it's escalated the idea that, okay, you remember the saying, first they came for so-and-so, then they came for next person, right? They're coming for all of us. If we don't stand up together, if we don't create solidarity together, if we don't unite together, to be able to not just speak out, but now act. And I know a lot of times people say, well, how much can we really do in terms of preventing ICE from attacking our neighbors? Can you really have LAPD stand up against ICE? Well, if LAPD is not going to do their job in protecting and serving us, then what is the role and job of LAPD? Why do they exist to begin with? Right? And so we have city laws that take precedent for our city residents. It's time that we begin to change the way that we act and govern here in the city, to understand that we need to ensure, and if we need to change laws, if we need to do things differently, we sure as hell will. And we have to. I mean, we're seeing President Trump change and completely dismiss rules and laws all the time. Why are we not? Exactly. Why are we not taking a lesson to say, this is our moment to transform the things that do not work for you and me?
Can you walk us briefly through what you hope to accomplish in terms of housing for all?
So one of the things that we're seeing in our inability to actually solve our homelessness crisis is that our departments and city offices and county offices are not talking with one another. They have been inept in being able to partner effectively. And as a result, there's been a lot of gaps in providing services to reach our unhoused neighbors. So for example, when residents who are living on the street then move into an Inside Safe program, into a motel or hotel, there's been numerous cases that I've heard from mutual aid organizers on the ground with relationships with our unhoused residents who have said that they lose their relationship with their social worker because they don't know where they went. And one of the challenges too is when you move from your place of residence, which might be in a tent, it's still a place of residence. They build community and they know the resources around them to know where to get their medicine, to know where their friends are, to know where they're going to get a hot meal, to know where they're going to use the bathroom or take a shower, right? These are all familiar things. I don't know if when you've moved, you said you moved here after leaving for 6 years. When you moved into a new place, it's pretty traumatizing. You have to figure out, even if you're excited and it was a move for a good thing, the first month or even few months, even maybe the first year or two, it takes some time to really build friendships. It takes time to get settled, to really feel like yourself. And that's usually when, if you have any mental instability or health issues, that's when it really occurs. And so think about that as somebody who's lives in a tent. Even if they are unhoused and 4 walls is a great thing and a bed is comfortable, there's still other aspects of wanting to feel safe and stable. And so there's a manner of being able to ensure that while we're thinking about moving people indoors, we need to think about people as a holistic human being. It's not just that giving somebody a bed will solve everything. It's that we need to provide them with full support. We do know and believe in housing first approaches, which is the idea that you need to provide them with stable housing. So here's the other problem. In the Inside Safe program, people have been moved sometimes 2, 3, 4 times in from hotel to motel, and which means that they are destabilized over and over and over again and without support, and also being moved away from their community, from their friends, from the people that they might consider family, their chosen family. And so when we do that over and over again, it does destabilize people, which then increases mental health concerns and issues. And that is oftentimes when people turn to illegal substances to be able to help support them to get through that, because it's medicine for them.
Yeah.
They're using it as medicine. And so as we're thinking about getting people stabilized in housing, we need to think about it in the form of ensuring that we are getting people into permanent, affordable housing.
Right.
So we're stabilizing them for the long term. We need to ensure that the services are working together. So that way there's no gaps in services and in resources. And also that we have a plan of recovery for them.
Yeah.
And that we're in conversation with them, that we see them as people who have agency to decide and determine how they want to progress in their life. That's one of the things that's often missing when we're working with the unhoused, is we don't see them as human beings. We see them as sometimes even animals, where we're just, saying, here's some food, now, figure it out. But each one of us, we all want to have good, free lives. We don't want to be living like we're in prisons and in carceral spaces. And that is why the approach that I will take is I'll be creating immediately an Office of Housing for All, like you named, which is going to be connecting the dots and relationships between all of the housing service providers, between the city and the county, between the departments, as well as the offices, to ensure that we are getting services met with the people who need them. It'll also be that same office will also be working with affordable housing developers to ensure that we're building housing at the rate that we need to ensure that we're building. The other is it's also going to be guiding and being in communication with our Keep LA Housed advocacy group, and also our departments that work on tenant resources and on tenant education. So that way, all of these areas are being interconnected, and we're able to seamlessly ensure that we are moving and progressing towards what we need for our city. Yeah. And one of the ways that we'll do that to ensure transparency and accountability is creating a public dashboard so people can see the progress. And also switch from, instead of a lot of times our homelessness providers, we've been seeing gaps in the provision of care. So instead of instead of looking at their services as a place of how many people did you serve today, look at the progress of the individuals themselves. Really switching and ensuring that there's accountability within the system, and shoring up the mental health services for our health providers, because it is hard but good and holy work. And we need to ensure that they are supported in their services as well, and they're being paid well, and that we are ensuring a healthy space, a healthy workplace for them. Yeah,
I think something that's surprising to me is that these, you named the four different, what was it? The four different areas of LA that are supposed to be working together, or that you want to bring together, that work together to help with this issue. It surprises me that they're not already working together on such an important thing.
That is one of the most challenging and troubling things that and criticisms I actually have of the current administration, is that our departments and our services are not being thoroughly resourced. So much of our money is going to LAPD instead of our departments. So that's one area of concern. The other is that because there ends up being mistrust, or there is mistrust between the mayor's office and the county supervisors, between the mayor's office and the city council members' offices, and the departments. They're all competing for lack of resources. They're competing for power instead of collectively, collaboratively working together as a united leadership to be able to progress our city. And so as a coalition builder, and somebody who's been very effective at building coalitions and leading them and directing them and managing them, that is why I'm running, actually. Because I am somebody who knows how to bring people together who have different interests, different ideas, different perspectives, but still come together and say, what's our common vision and how are we going to progress and actually do the things we need to do to ensure the success of our city? Because every one of us believes in this. We want a better city. So let's progress towards that together. Yeah. So you'll be working as a sort of facilitator then too. And sounds like you're pretty good at that. A facilitator and a collaborator. Yeah. It's time we see our city council members and our county supervisors as partners in this work, not as competitors for power, not as competitors for the public, fawning. We need to work together. That's how we're going to make our city and county successful. That's how we're going to solve our homelessness crisis.
So you mentioned the fast tracking of building what you called, I don't want to
social housing?
Yeah, social housing, because it's not affordable housing. You're calling it, but you're calling it social housing, right?
So social housing is permanent affordable housing that is publicly or community owned, which means it could be public housing. Public housing is a form of social housing. Community land trusts are stewards of social housing. Co-ops are social housing. These are all different forms of housing that are not owned by an individual private entity, but by a community or by the public. And that's what makes it social housing. And then because it's owned by a community, it's not going to be bought and sold in the private market anymore because it's now, forever owned by, stewarded by a community land trust, a public land, right? And so that's why we say that it's permanently affordable.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I think other people will probably wonder too. So that's very helpful. But we're wondering if the fast tracking of building these homes are going to help bring prices down and making buying homes in the future more affordable.
Yes, absolutely. The more that we can be able to expand social housing, then we can actually stabilize the real estate market. So for example, 40% of housing in Vienna, Austria, is social housing because so much of their housing is permanently affordable and off the speculative market. It stabilizes the market of the other homes that are being privately sold.
Gotcha.
And it also means that there's such a big, so many homes to choose from when you want to move from living near your family to living near your university. You could actually have an option because there's so many social housing options available. And also because you don't have to worry about being kicked out. You're not worried about the stress of housing. It's also more affordable. An example is I was just attending another presentation on social housing in Vienna, Austria. And the presenter gave an example of the fact that there was a 2-bedroom penthouse apartment building on the main river. So this is like, the best part of the city, most expensive part of the city, penthouse apartment. It was only $600 a month or 600 euros, I should say. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
It was social housing.
Yeah.
And what they also said was a lot of the social housing, people who live in social housing, their buildings are even nicer than the private buildings because they put so much attention into building it. We have architects who put a lot of priority into ensuring that the social housing that's built is going to meet the needs and be flexible for the people and the families and the communities who live there. In fact, I had a conversation with a local architect here in Los Angeles who's a big proponent of social housing. And he told me actually that public housing actually uses better materials. Affordable housing developers use better materials when they build their housing than market rate housing. The reason being is because they know they need to build for the long term. They're trying to build sustainable buildings. They're not trying to just build a building to just turn it around to get something quick and pretty looking. They're using materials that are going to last for as long as they could possibly last. And this is something we need to be thinking about as a city, is that we've been dealing with climate change, right? We've seen and experienced the fires. That's not going to be the first time it's going to happen. We've been experiencing floods. What are we doing to ensure the long-term viability and future of our city? What are we ensuring? How are we going to make sure that the buildings we're building are going to sustain an earthquake, sustain other things, and also not contribute to climate change? These are the questions we need to be asking, which is why I often don't say green social housing, but in fact, when I'm talking about social housing, I'm specifically talking about climate resilient social housing.
And so for people who might be apprehensive of this for some reason, we can see that it's worked in Austria, like you just gave us an example. So if they could do it, why can't we do it here?
Exactly. Social housing is so popular in just about every other country in the world, in Uruguay, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Hong Kong, in Singapore. I was in Dublin, Ireland, where we got to go and visit social housing, where they had the International Social Housing Festival, where I spoke last year. There are so many examples and models. So why are we not also participating in this system?
Yeah.
So we have already created the infrastructure actually to expand social housing here in LA. A lot of people don't know this. Housing organizers and advocates have been working for years. We have a Los Angeles Housing Movement Lab where we are creating the strategy and system to be able to expand social housing. We have a Los Angeles Community Land Trust Coalition already set up to be able to support the expansion of community land trusts here in LA.
Very cool.
We have housing lab. No, sorry, I already mentioned that one. We have a LA Housing Hub, which is going to be technical assistance and support for residents to learn how to be able to manage their own buildings, technical assistance for affordable housing developers, and we have money and revenue coming in. The reason why I've been advocating for Measure ULA, which is a transfer tax on buildings that are $5 million or more, is because a chunk of that money is going towards social housing development and acquisition. And so we have the system, it's time to expand it. And I'm also proud to say that I helped pass SB 555, a state bill 2 years ago, which actually sat on this on the advisory committee on this bill, which is a social housing study bill, which is going to make recommendations by the end of this year on the infrastructure that the state can adopt to be able to support social housing expansion across the whole state.
Yeah.
Also, one more thing. Our coalition has also worked with AOC's office and also Senator Smith's office before she left her term on the House Act. What is it called? I think it's called the Housing Act. Can't remember the exact name.
Yeah.
But it actually includes infrastructure at the federal level to expand social housing. So we are ready for this. It's time we bring it into LA.
Yeah. Time to get the ball rolling.
Exactly.
Right? So, so there's hope for the millennials and the Gen Zers to maybe own a home one day.
Absolutely. Yeah. If we expand social housing, 100%, there will be housing that is affordable for young professionals, for students who can actually feel stabilized. And my children will be one of those.
Yeah. What does a lasting pathway out of homelessness look like in Rae's LA? And what resources will the city be able to provide for those who end up on the streets of LA due to mental health issues?
Yeah. Long lasting means every single unhoused person actually has permanent supportive housing to live in. And so one of the ways right now that I think we can turn that over is turning our hotels and motels and turning them into permanent supportive housing. And they can be, if you will, single resident occupancies and ensure that we have support for them. And as people, if they want to leave into other larger apartments, they can do that. And then I want to build permanent supportive housing. We have a lot of public land that is underutilized right now. There are opportunities for us to be able to turn a lot of that land into permanent supportive housing, into other forms of mixed income, affordable social housing, and also we need to ensure that the services that we have in the city are actually going to meet the people who need them. So I think, and that, like I said, again, is I'm going to use the Office of Housing for All to ensure that we're connecting all the dots and making sure that those programs are happening.
Yeah.
One of the ways I like to talk about this is a lot of times we'll separate our homelessness crisis from our affordable housing crisis. But they are actually two sides of the same coin. And the medicine for it is permanent affordable housing.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people who are unhoused and are on the streets because they have drug abuse problems or mental health issues. And, you know, sometimes they do end up in these, like the interim housing, but then they end up back on the streets because of their mental health issues or their drug abuse. So what services is the city able to provide those people to help them with the root cause of their homelessness?
Yeah. So a lot of times we'll say the root cause was because of addiction or because of mental health. I would actually say that there is not one single root cause. I would say that instability is instability, and that we are holistic human beings who struggle with physical ailments, mental health ailments, spiritual ailments, if you will, you know, like but one of the ways to be able to support people, research has shown housing first model approaches work, which means we stabilize people first with one place to stay, with one place to be, and then in that stable place, begin to provide them with the support whether it's mental health or whatever recovery supports, recovery groups that they need. The other thing is we do actually have a significant amount of funding right now coming from Measure 1 or I can't remember which one it is right now, which is a significant amount of revenue that's coming towards for mental health.
My family lives in La Puente, which is in the San Gabriel Valley. Yeah. And one of the elementary schools that I went to, they were going to tear it down and build housing on it. And I remember my mom telling me what the neighbors were complaining about. And they're like, oh, we don't want these drug addicts or homeless people living here. They're just going to leave and then, do drugs on the corner right there, very ignorant things. So how do we get people to stop viewing it in that kind of negative light and make them realize no, that's not what's going to happen? Because I think that's why people in their 60s, 70s that are going to be voting are thinking about those things. Cause it's just, again, a stereotype that came from the 70s, like you said, and, people are just still living in that ignorance.
Yeah, no, the challenge we have is that right now the stereotypes are being even, the stereotype is being weaponized, but it's being exacerbated by our very own President Trump.
Yeah.
Right? He's calling them all these terrible names. And blaming it on the individual for why they're experiencing poverty instead of understanding that we have a system that is not working and is causing further and further poverty. And you see such a correlation between people who are experiencing health issues and also poverty because we're not providing resources on multiple fronts. I think a way that we can break the stereotype is going to have to be through a systems change and through the fact that we all know and remember moments in our own lives where we went through a mental health incident. Yeah. Right. All of us at some point experienced depression and experienced anxiety, we lost a job and that spiraled into something else. Right. We've all been there. The difference though is if you don't have enough money and you are unable to pay for your bills, then you lose your home, then you lose your car. There's this whole snowballing effect. And then you end up maybe on the streets, on someone's couch, in your car, then you lose your car, et cetera, right? And if you're lucky enough and you have a community to support you, maybe you'll stay on people's couches for a while, you can get back on your feet. But for a lot of people and more here in LA, we don't have those nets that we've created anymore. We've lost those safety nets that the government has provided in the past. And so then people fall onto their faces and where do you go? Like I said, people turn to alcohol and to, other different kinds of drugs, whether they're legal drugs or not. We have to remember that the richer people use legal drugs to be able to help them with their medicine. The other folks use illegal drugs because it's more affordable and it's available in the streets.
Yeah. It makes sense to me where if someone has a stable home and they feel safe and they can breathe, then it's okay, now I can figure out how to how to take care of my mental health or how to kick this drug and how to attend rehab or, whatever it may be to become sober and, go on that path. But if you don't have a stable home, then how could they even think of the people are just trying to survive is what I'm trying to say. So I do get it. I understand. Yeah. And I hope that people who watch this or who have those, negative viewpoints on this can push that aside and just see it for what it is and then truly understand because I think you are right. Yeah. So I
feel like the people who understand are those who've been in it. And I also think that, I forgot what I was going to say around that, but I think that a lot of people don't want to ever have to see themselves in that light. Yeah. A lot of folks will say, oh, but I'll never be homeless. I'll never get to a place where I'm using it, in such and such way. But we all know, that we all have our addictions and there are places of, where we're just trying to survive. And I think we're a lot more human. And I think we're a lot closer to being unhoused than we are to being a billionaire. I'll tell you that.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're one check away.
Exactly.
For, one job losing your job, not getting a severance, and you're one check away from not being able to afford your rent or your mortgage. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's cool with you, I'd like to talk about LAPD because you brought it up earlier. So you're pushing, per your website, you're pushing for real safety in LA, meaning a city that actually takes care of people through care, accountability, and belonging, not fear. Can you walk us through what that means in terms of working with the Los Angeles Police Department?
Yeah. So we know historically that LAPD has been racist, classist, homophobic, sexist, etc. We talked earlier about racial profiling that's been happening. We've seen, we are paying now nearly $500,000, right, in liabilities because of police misconduct. So at this moment right now, the police are not doing what they were hired to do, which is to protect and serve us. And so what we need to do is be able to challenge that system. We need to transform it. And one of the ways I'll be doing that is I will be firing Chief McDonnell. He's not been doing his job. I named that earlier. The second is I will be replacing people on the police commission who do have a bigger imagination for a transformation of what our police force could look like. I was on a podcast the other day with transit users, and they were telling me that one person had a great metaphor for this, and the idea that he said, you know, before we had police, we had soldiers, and that was not great. And so then we came up with the police, and that was a lot better. But why are we not imagining that we could have something better after that? Right? And so there is a possibility if we can just open our imagination to say, okay, so the system of police could be better significantly. Particularly our Black and Indigenous community members have lifted up this the most, which is we really don't trust the police. You know, I have a friend who, when he says the police in the car, his children immediately raise up their hands, right? And the kids say, who, where? Because they know and have seen their father be picked up by the police over and over again because he's Black while driving. And so we do need to change the system. And the thing is, it's 100% possible. It's 100% possible to reimagine a different way of being able to practice and find and create real public safety. And one of the ways that Black Lives Matter has talked about a lot is being able to put our money where our mouth is by investing in resources to prevent crime from happening in the first place. The police come after a crime has occurred. So they don't actually prevent the crime. They don't prevent us from someone stealing from us. They don't prevent us from maybe getting violently hurt by somebody. What they do is they come after it's occurred to check on the progress and to, you know, whatever. But the best thing to do is to be able to ensure that the crime doesn't begin in the first place. An example here, I have a gym classmate who recently retired from the FBI and is now actually going to study psychology. And the reason why is he said, you know, Rae, I would over and over again see people and read their story about somebody that we know is probably going to commit heinous harm on somebody or the community, but we can't do anything until he or she does something. So we just have to watch this, you know, occur. And it was so hard for them to sit through it. And he said, the only thing I could think about was the only way to stop it was to prevent that person from going down that route, and was if we could really provide that person with the right kind of care they needed so that they could move away from the trauma or the whatever that was causing them to eventually commit this particular crime. And so that's why he's studying to be a psychologist after he's retiring from the police department or from the FBI. Right. And so that's such a great example of the fact that when we talk about public safety, is if we truly want real safety in our communities, we need to prevent crime from beginning in the first place by putting our resources into job security, into job development, into mentorship and counseling, into youth development, into gang prevention, into after school programs, into health.
Yeah.
Right. All of these things that can help stabilize us. That is where we should be putting our money. And so how will I work with the police? I will be making sure that we are now beginning to ask the question, what does real safety look like?
Yeah.
We've seen one example already, so we know that it's possible, which is the unarmed crisis response program, right? UMCR and also Circle program. We have seen that it works. 90-something% of the calls that go into 911 are not violent, you know? And so when people are in crisis, they should be met with responders who can meet their particular needs at that moment in crisis.
Would these responders technically be part of LAPD, and would that budget cover them then?
They are actually a separate budget line.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because I think this is one of my other questions, but a lot of people are calling to defund the police. And what does that really mean? Because a lot of people assume, defunding the police means fewer officers. And then people in turn think like, oh, well, if there's less cops, am I really going to be safe if I can't call them? Like, is someone going to answer? So yeah, what in your eyes, what does that truly mean then? Defunding the police?
It means putting our resources into things that we need to actually truly keep us safe. I'm going to give you an example right now. So one of the things I'm advocating for or on my campaign is for fast and free buses.
Yeah.
And the way that we can do that is the cost of the enforcement of fare collection is about the same amount of money that we're receiving from collecting fares. They cancel each other out. And so we can do that. So one is we can make buses free, but also we're spending a lot of money in the enforcement of fare collection. And so we've actually hired the LAPD and other third parties to be able to enforce the collection of fares. And so when you have LAPD walking around the trains, you might see somebody who you might feel uncomfortable with or might be having some trauma. But the thing is, if they've not done any harm on another person, the police won't do anything about it. They're like, well, I can't help you until some physical altercation happens.
Yeah.
And so if you feel unsafe, they're like, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to deal until it happens.
So they do something or act on it.
Whereas one of the things that we've been doing with a pilot program is traffic ambassadors. Traffic ambassadors are not officers. They're not police officers. They are people who walk around the train to be able, or the buses, to be able to support people in need. And so if somebody is uncomfortable or they're struggling in some capacity or way, maybe having a mental health breakdown, the traffic ambassador can come over and help that person before any incident occurs.
I wouldn't want to call the police on someone that's going through a mental health crisis, because then that can exacerbate the problem. I wouldn't want to put someone in harm's way, and Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But if you're trained in mental health, you're trained in de-escalation, you're trained as a social worker, then you'll know what to do to help support that person.
Right.
Yeah. So we can have a bigger imagination than what we have. And I think it's time that we grow that imagination.
Yeah.
And being one of the most creative cities in the world.
Yeah.
With having Hollywood right here, which we need to bring back, right? Why not start in LA?
Yeah. How can the LA City Mayor's office protect Angelenos against ICE?
Yeah, well, I already named that we need right leadership that's going to protect and serve Los Angeles. So again, it is the release of Chief McDonnell. The second area is and making sure that LAPD and ICE do not work together. And that's why I'll be putting police commissioners on the commission board to ensure that they actually agree with and that we should be protecting our residents from federal agents. The other area is we need to ensure that we're keeping people housed. That's why the Olympics are coming to town. And we've been focused, or at least the current mayor's office has been so focused on infrastructure for the Olympics.
Yeah.
She has a capital infrastructure plan to make sure that when the Olympics come here, that the tourists are going to see a beautiful city and have streets to where they're going to get to the games, while not thinking about the fact about how is this going to impact Angelenos? And is the infrastructure actually going to be good for Angelenos in the long term? Or is it a short-term Band-Aid just to make it kind of look pretty on the outside, but not actually be a sustainable future for LA? And we're spending tons of money. And the fact that we don't have a budget yet for LA. And so for the LA Olympics, which means that we could be completely bankrupt. And we're already 6 months delayed in hearing whether that budget's going to completely bankrupt us or not. And we're still waiting for it, right? So there's a lot of issues here. But to focus on the ICE raids, we need to ensure that people are not going to lose housing. And so we already are seeing, especially with the recent budget proposal, there was a very kind of concerning line in talking about the fact that the city was going to accept funds from essentially from the transient occupancy tax, which means basically Airbnb is going to pay their tax up front for the money because they're planning on being able to expand Airbnb like crazy in time for the Olympics. So what we're saying is we already are at threat. The city's already accepted the money, acknowledged the fact that we are going to be expecting a lot of money from taxes to open more short-term rentals when we have a housing crisis. When our immigrants are under threat, when we already are going to see these short-term rentals replacing and displacing our families. We cannot become that. So what we need to do is have an eviction moratorium leading up to the Olympics to ensure that people will actually be able to feel stably housed, not be pushed out by landlords who are going to be wanting to flip those buildings and those units into short-term rentals, and ensure that people can stay inside, stay safe. The other thing we can do is ensure that our public spaces are protected and safe from ICE. If in fact the LAPD is able to protect and serve us, then they should be protecting that public spaces from ICE. Right now, that is not the case of our LAPD, but it's something that we need to build towards.
I've heard a lot of people have that concern of, we're going to have a lot of tourism here during the Olympics. And if ICE is present at that time, which it sounds like Donald Trump wants them to be present here, how do we protect people visiting Los Angeles, but also the people who live here who are immigrants or who are undocumented or people who are undocumented but are at risk of being racially profiled. So
a lot of people don't realize actually that when a world event comes to your city, that the LAPD comes under federal control.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the LAPD will be an arm of our federal government, be an arm of what Trump wants it to be. Can you imagine? So
scary.
Exactly. It's terrifying. It means that now the federal government is going to have access to all of our information that is held by the LAPD.
Actually, I wanted to bring up the cameras that are being installed across LA. I think it's about 120 cameras that are being installed under the guise of, traffic violation cameras, right? And that's something that you've spoken about a lot on your platform. So I don't know if there's something that you wanted to touch on there or how that information could or possibly end up in the hands of ICE.
Yeah, absolutely. So flock cameras are around the whole country right now. And even though Flock Safety this company has said that they do not share their information with third parties, they in fact have. There's a well-known case where a Texas sheriff used the flock camera to be able to identify a woman who is leaving the state to be able to get an abortion. That's terrifying, right?
Wow, yeah.
We already know of numerous cases, even here in California, where flock cameras were used by ICE agents to be able to identify people they want to detain, right? And so what I am calling for is to end the contract of these surveillance cameras, to end the flock contract. We've had other cities that have already started this process. We need to be the next city in line who's going to do that. South Pasadena is one of those cities, by the way. So it's already one of our local cities who stood up and said, no flock cameras in our city. We can do that here in LA.
Yeah, like there has to be other ways to combat speed, people that are speeding.
Absolutely. You can actually create, build the roads to be able to adopt and encourage people to drive slower. Ideas like roundabouts, speed bumps, raised crosswalks. You can even using colors, when you see a lot of painted colors, and when you start to narrow the road where you make the road look more narrow, cars will actually slow down naturally.
Okay, yeah.
So if we truly want real safety, it's not going to be a camera that takes a picture of your license plate after you've already broke the law. Then it's just like the police. You're coming after the crime has been committed. What's that going to solve? It's not going to make us feel safer. It's not going to make us safer. Instead, we need to prevent it from happening in the first place. And that's the model we need to move towards.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's going to limit surveillance on our communities, which we have way too much of already.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add, the other area that we can help support our immigrant communities is, for example, expanding our budget around Represent LA, which is legal support and representation for anybody who needs it, who is an immigrant, who, and as well as resources for community organizations, for local neighbors and residents who are already organizing rapid response and doing Know Your Rights. We need to expand and show up and do everything we can to be able to keep our families safe in this moment.
Yeah. You want to open an office of Nightlife. Can you give us a brief explanation of what that is?
Yeah. So we have an untouched economy that we can expand here in Los Angeles. We have some of the best artists in the world. We have some of the best entertainers in the world, musician, artists, performance artists, playwrights, actors, right? We have some of the best food in the world and the best cocktails and mocktails in the world right here in Los Angeles. Yep. We are a very creative industry here. So it's time that we now expand into the evening and into the night and into the wee hours of the morning, where people can be able to be entertained. They can expand their creative outlets. They can create new opportunities to be able to entertain each other. They're beautiful third spaces where Angelenos can connect and enjoy life. And we want to support that. So I want to open an office of Nightlife to be able to support that expansion. And that means not only supporting those industries and finding ways and resources to support our entertainment life, but also encourage and create safety measures. So for example, having our buses running further later at night, having bathrooms and water fountains, which we need during the day and also at night, right? Like providing security, providing safety, and really thinking about what it is to become the next city that never sleeps.
The next city that never sleeps. Oh, wow. That would be pretty fun, honestly. Yeah. Can you tell us what your plan is for improving public transportation in Los Angeles is?
Yeah. I plan on making buses fast and free and also expanding transit. We have already begun to see us expanding transit, but we are going at such a snail's pace. We're oftentimes promised transit and then we don't see it for years and years and years. We see, for example, our current mayor was trying to delay the K Line North to such a degree that we were afraid it wouldn't even be built because she was trying to move the location of the transit line because she, I think, happened to have friends who lived in that area. So we need to have a mayor who actually believes in transit. And I myself, as a transit rider, love riding the transit and believe very much that it will actually help us make our city safer. We talked earlier about street safety and public safety around the fact that traffic collisions are one of the biggest killers of our children. And so let's get people out of their cars. Let's move away from car culture and into other forms of infrastructure that can help us move around in a safer way. That's through public transit. That's through biking. That's through making safer places for pedestrians to walk. And if you make buses free, it will immediately increase ridership by 30%, getting people out of their cars and into buses. It will also make buses safer because a busy bus is a safe bus. It will also be able to make buses faster because you won't have to wait for people trying to tap their card, but they can get on immediately. And to make them faster also means if we have a signal control, which prioritizes buses and trains, so that way you don't have to wait for that red light every time. But then also if we have dedicated lanes as well for buses, it'll also make buses fly by. These are all ways that we can immediately begin to shift our car dependent culture into one that, and it's going to, it's going to be slow at first, but
take some time.
I 100% guarantee you it's going to take off. And I also should mention, because you talked about housing earlier, the best way to be able to expand affordable housing is actually by building the transit first, having that transit available for those spaces, and then building the housing after the transit is available. So that way you don't have to provide as much that way people can get around for the new housing that they're living in.
Yeah. And you mentioned that making the transportation free is is of importance, which I think a lot of people would agree, right? I know that in 2020 during COVID that LA Dash had free public transportation.
That's right.
Which is so cool. But my question is, if we want to make LA less car centric, and the people that already use the system, most of them are lower income and that's why they use the system. How do we get people who have cars or can afford to own a car to ditch their cars and hop on a bus or hop on the metro?
Well, if it's free and you have to choose between riding a bus that's going to go fly by those other cars while you're in traffic, or ride your car, I think eventually you'll switch over. Like I said, it will be some time. I'll tell you that a number of people who've been moving to LA, when they first get here, they actually don't a number of people who arrive here don't have a car.
Yeah.
And so if they get used to transit that works, then they won't have the pressure to have to feel like they have to own a car. And the honest truth is cars are really expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the car itself that you have to pay for the insurance. For the gas now that is just skyrocketing. Right? There's so many good reasons to not have to rely on your car. And so if we can make it accessible, then I think a lot of people would probably make that choice. And eventually and slowly we'll be able to shift that culture that we've always had.
And it is fun to take the metro. I feel like a city girl when I take the metro, It's awesome. Okay, I think we're good on, one thing I wanted to say wasn't a question or anything, but I don't know who do we tell this to, but as someone who might be the mayor of LA one day, I'm gonna tell you and then maybe you tell someone else. But I love when the bike lane is on the inside and the car is on the outside, because the car that's parked protects the bike lane. And then if I'm driving, I'm not worried about the biker. I slow down for bikers because I'm a good human being. Okay. So I move over, I slow down for the bike riders, but there are people who are impatient and who don't care, quite frankly, about people on bikes. And anyways, I think that's how all of our bike lanes should be, where they have the parked car on the outside of them, protecting them against the drivers. So
100%. I totally agree. Yeah. And that is the method. And that is the goal, is to have bike lanes all around the city. Yeah, we are flat. Awesome. We have perfect weather all year round. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could just bike to the beach, bike, or, to your next destination? You'll get exercise. You'll have a nice tan.
Yeah. I love it. Sign me up for sure. I need to get a bicycle first. All right. That's awesome. Okay. So we're going to wrap up our interview and we have a segment called This or That. And I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, but answer rapid fire.
Okay.
Street sweeping day panic or meter running out stress?
Oh,
which one would you rather deal with?
Street sweeping.
Yeah. Just switch the car over. Grand Central Market food crawl or One Perfect Restaurant?
Ooh, One Perfect Restaurant.
You're into jazz.
I love jazz.
Yeah. So jazz night at, I always say this wrong, Leimert Park, downtown Los Angeles, or Highland Park?
Ooh. My favorite is LACMA Jazz.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait for it to come back this summer. Yeah. Okay. That wasn't even one of our options, but solos that tell a story or solos that explore a texture?
Oh, tell a story.
Okay. Listening to music discovery or comfort playlist in traffic?
Definitely. Wait, what was the first one again?
Listening to music discovery or comfort playlist in traffic?
Oh, comfort music in traffic.
Yeah.
Not in traffic. Yeah. Can we just do comfort music?
Yeah. No one wants to deal with traffic, but we're going to make public transportation free.
Yes.
And we won't be sitting in traffic. So,
exactly.
Yeah, problem solved. Another traffic question, sorry. Would you rather be stuck in traffic on the 405 with no music or no AC?
Oh my gosh. I guess no music, because it's really impossible without AC.
Yeah, it's so messed up.
Which I have experienced for many years because my last car did not have AC.
Oh yeah. So you know the struggle. A quiet walk in Elysian Park or people watching on the Venice Beach boardwalk?
Oh, Elysian.
Yeah. Late night out, are you eating tacos, In-N-Out, or a bacon-wrapped hot dog?
Oh, definitely tacos.
Oof, okay, yeah. Late night drive-through run or a sit-down dinner that turns into a 2-hour conversation?
A run.
Okay. Parking in a Trader Joe's lot for just a minute or circling residential streets for 12 minutes?
Wait, say it again.
Parking in a Trader Joe's lot for just a minute, or are you circling residential streets for 12 minutes?
Trader Joe's.
Yeah. As a single mom and community organizer, what part of your routine is non-negotiable?
Going for a run.
Where do you find your reset moments in a city like Los Angeles?
In parks, trees.
And what's something people underestimate about LA communities?
We just know how to turn up for each other. You know that if you need help, somebody will help you.
Yeah.
Always.
If you could look at this camera here, and if you have a message for Los Angeles, any one-sided beefs with the city, parking meters, or just like something you want to show love to or shout out or a message just for Angelenos, can you please share it with that camera?
My message is June 2nd is coming up, which is the primaries. And a lot of people wait until the general election to make their vote and to decide on who they want as their future leader. And I'd say, don't wait. It's time that we participate and make sure that we make our city and future beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on this. This was so informative and so much fun to get to know you on like a more personal level. And I hope that, we get people to watch and learn more about you.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
I so appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Have a good one and see you on the next one.